Welcome to Viz Able Black Woman, the podcast. My name is Janine T. Abraham, and I am your host. My guest this week is Ari Gold, a filmmaker who has spent his career blurring the lines between fiction and real life, and his latest project pushes those lines further than ever. Ari is the director of the feature film Brother vs. Brother, a one-shot musical odyssey executive produced by Francis Ford Coppola that follows two argumentative musicians who happen to be twin brothers making their way through the streets of San Francisco in a single, unbroken take, searching for their dying father. Ari co-stars in the film with his real-life twin brother Ethan, turning their relationship into a fictionalized, improvised journey. Ari's resume is impressive, from writing and directing the cult comedy Adventures of Power to the romantic drama The Song of Sway Lake to his upcoming feature Helicopter. His creativity knows no bounds. In his spare time, he's picked up a Guinness World Record for the largest air drum ensemble on Earth. Impressive. And yes, a Stoner of the Year title from High Times. Today, we're diving into what it takes to make a movie in one take with your own family, why Ari is drawn to turning his life into art, and what Brother vs. Brother taught him about brotherhood, grief, and so much more. So, sit back, relax, and listen to my lovely conversation with Ari Gold, the director, writer, and actor in Brother vs. Brother.
Hi.
Hi, Ari Gold. How you being?
I'm good. It's hot out here in LA. I'm managing the heat and my own fear of global warming, and it's all will fit in with everything we're going to talk about. I'm good.
You're good. Yeah, it's hot here in New York too, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in menopause, so I have to have air conditioning. So I'm sorry, global warming. I can't, I would be much worse if
Yeah.
I didn't have some air conditioning going on. But one of my favorite films from my first South by Southwest was your film, Brother versus Brother,
Thank you. Thank you.
which was this incredible one-shot musical journey through San Francisco with your twin brother on the way to take care of your father. Was the last film that he worked on of yours. And I wanted to find out, my first question is, what was your biggest inspiration to actually create this film?
Well, the biggest thing really was real life. I mean, I had some film influences, some other one-shot movies um, made by friends of mine. One called Victoria out of Germany, one called A Night in Minsk out of Belarus. Um, and so doing something in one shot, I learned from their films could do what I wanted to do anyway, which is to create a sense of presence and to be present while making the thing, but also to ideally um, point a path towards presence for the audience. And in this case, I had been working for many years on multiple different screenplays about my musical relationship with my twin brother Ethan, where we play music together and fight and we have fantasies. And I had all these different scripts that I had written. Some tried to capture the kind of like Mighty Boosh, Monty Python-esque weirdness of our sense of humor. Some were trying to capture the drama and trauma of childhood traumas and how they sort of reflect on adult lives. And every time I wrote something, it sort of became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and unwieldy. And so realizing there was a story there, and also knowing that our father was 99 years old and was also a cinematic character, a literary you know, small legend, at least a legend locally in San Francisco, um, and um, and all these ideas kind of coalesce. Where it's like, okay, well, I don't know how long our dad's going to be around, and that's one factor. And then the other factor is the dynamic between me and my brother. I have tried to capture it on paper many times, and it just gets lost. And so, if we could improvise a 90-minute film that captured our relationship and captured a story of brothers kind of working it out musically in the streets and trying to find romance and trying to find a gig, but also with this kind of shark in the water of trying to find our father before he dies. Um, I realized there was potentially a story there that could really work in the space of 90 minutes of real life, 90 minutes of real time, where it's like I couldn't capture everything from all of our lives, but if the events were well chosen and we were living in the moment, then you would see in that 90 minutes, it would refract, or like an iceberg sticking out. You would kind of sense the full life. So that's what it was. Was partially based out of this practical thing of wanting to tell the story and trying to figure out a way to do it, and then realizing that doing it in the real world in this improvisational way could potentially capture something magical. So,
And it totally did, because it did I'm I love work that feels real, whether it be in film when people are writing dialogue, the way people actually speak. So to have an improvised work that's 90 minutes and a one shot where you're playing instruments and talking to each other, I feel like you have to know each other as well as you and your brother do. And I feel like only twins could do something like this, because you inherently finish each other's sentences, you know
yeah.
each other's rhythms, and
Yeah, I mean,
um
it certainly helps, but I will also hats off to some of the people who, there's a scene where we go into a bar and I've met this young woman singer who I have a crush on, and then we run into the guitarist from Weezer, who then kind of cuts in and tries to hit on her and kind of steal her from me. But um, um, and they had just met and they improved through, because the camera kind of floats between different things that are happening, especially in that sequence.
yeah.
So it floats over to them, and I didn't know what they were going to say. I gave them kind of a map for how the scene should run, but the way he hits on her, the way she responds, all of that was a total surprise to me when I saw the footage, because
Yeah.
I was acting on the other side of the room with my brother, and it was set up to be kind of in the background
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that section. So yes, it totally helps that everyone knew each other, and I was friends with all the actors, so that did
Well,
help.
energetically, I feel like you have a good sense of people, and you could feel the love. I could feel the love in the film throughout, like even before I met you and your brother. Just as watching it, it's very refreshing, because I see a lot of films and a lot of people are trying to capture what you all captured, and it was just such a beautiful film.
Thank you.
And it caught me as well, particularly for your character, for the caregiving aspect, because you're dealing with searching for your father, but also being concerned about your brother and
Yeah.
being sandwiched in the middle of care. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and
Well,
like
it's
what you were
something that,
trying to portray
yeah,
with
I
that?
really have dealt with it in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who cares about anyone is going to deal with the challenges of caring for someone and the challenges of not falling into codependence, which, my character at that moment is definitely codependent, where I'm kind of dragging Ethan around, telling him he's got to do these gigs, and um, I'm obsessed with trying to save him in a way that is both difficult for him and also distracting me from my own sense of presence. But it's very much true to life in that I have gone through periods of my life where I couldn't see straight because I was so worried about someone that I cared about, and particularly my twin brother, and then
Yeah.
also, at times my father. Although, even well into his 90s, he was the kind of person who always insisted he was okay, even when I
Yeah.
kept going to visit, and every time any excuse, a sneeze, and I would go to San Francisco, or if I'm going to France, I'd go to San Francisco first. I was always going to see him because I didn't know if his health was going to suddenly decline at some point, and then there were
Yeah.
things that had to get taken care of, and
Yeah.
hospital visits, and his apartment, and light bulbs falling from the ceiling, and all that kind of stuff, physical caregiving stuff. But the dynamic was really different with my dad, who was always very much like, I've got this, and then we'd have to kind of see where he was covering up something that might have been a problem,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something going on in his apartment, um, versus my brother, who traditionally would sort of like, I think because I'm his twin, he felt permission to kind of advertise when he was in distress to me, not
Mm-hmm.
always to the world at large, but sometimes to me. He'd give me the indication of how frustrated he was with the challenges of getting his music out, and whatever. And so then I'd start spinning out, losing sleep, and being unable to figure out how to move forward in my own life because I was so obsessed with trying to fix him. And yet
Yeah.
whenever I did, it was, I mean, sometimes there were things that were helpful, but often it was like more like a grenade going off of me just trying to do something. And it took a lot of mistakes to realize that that usually doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I mean, anyone who's got siblings, that sometimes, I mean, if you care about them, that risk, or it can be with love relationships or parental relationships, or children, people can get lost in trying to be the caregiver, uh,
Yeah.
and and you can just make yeah, I've gone through periods where I've made myself totally miserable trying to care for all these people around me, and so the movies, you're right to bring that up, because that that was one of the major motivations for this story. All the other versions of the movie were sort of all these other ideas, and this one was like, oh, like, what are some of the core issues here? It's like, how do you care for and love somebody at the same time that you can not just let them go, but let them make mistakes and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. And the the movie, in the space of those 90 minutes, is really about sort of like a moment of like, as we're trying to work out our own stuff with each other, and then ultimately coming face to face with our dad. I can get some revealing that we do find my dad alive in the movie, but there's a question about whether maybe he's died during the course of the movie. But and then really coming to like having to accept that our dad might not hear the song that we're trying to play for him. Our dad might not want to listen. He might want to go to bed, and I might need to go off and talk to the Dutch singer who I met, and leave my brother alone in the street, not knowing if he's going to be okay, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
And so I have found that twins, particularly, but a lot of siblings have come up to us at screenings, as we've toured around, and said, "Oh man, this this really spoke to me." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, anybody who cares about anybody or takes care of someone is that, they're the people in the family who are the ones who are the fixers and the ones that people know they can come to. And then there's the ones that are, for whatever reason, whether it be, dealing with kids or other issues, that they're the ones that kind of are needing to be willed in or will come to you. And I feel like everyone can relate to this film because it just hits on so many diverse um, personality types. So when you're shooting on the street like that, what are the biggest challenges that you faced?
shooting on the street. I mean, I love it. I did a improv for a future project called Fogtown, a kind of ecological action adventure that I went down to a favela in Brazil and did improvs in the streets with
Cool.
non-actors and with the local community.
Yeah, yeah.
And just the amount of life that you get by turning on the camera in a real environment, and the surprises that even if nothing crazy happens, although sometimes crazy stuff does happen, you can feel that energy. You can feel the energy of the real world
Yeah.
in a way that I think is really, I mean, think about like crowd scenes in, big budget Hollywood movies, and you kind of feel like, maybe my imagination, but like, I feel like I can hear the AD, second AD saying, "Okay, extras, move in 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Now you're talking and you're having a good time and you're walking down the street, like, and everyone moves and they're all dressed in the proper way." And I
Yeah.
don't know, it just I feel it when I'm watching Hollywood movies that, even if they have the budget to have a whole bunch of actors on the street and to block out the streets and have the cars go by and the cop goes and whatever, like turning on the camera in a real environment is amazing. Now, of course, there are some challenges because sometimes people come up and try to interfere, although, with so many people walking down the streets with cameras,
Yeah.
it helps in a way because we were able to shoot in North Beach, San Francisco, crowded neighborhood, and people didn't pay attention to us. They didn't care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in that sense, everyone being, filming themselves all the time was helpful because it served as a kind of camouflage for the fact that we were actually making a movie.
Now, did
But
you shoot on iPhones? What did you shoot on?
no, we shot on a very small camera, Sony FX6, not super small, but like
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hold it with two hands,
Yeah.
and we considered shooting on a phone and we did some tests, but because the movie takes place starting at kind of end of day sunset and going into night,
Yeah.
the phone kind of falls apart. I mean, you get an image at night, but it really gets chunky and dirty in a way, like
Yeah.
too dirty. I mean, we could have done it, and I could see a future where I would do a movie on a phone, but doing it on a phone without lights, on some streets where the street lights wouldn't work, you just end up with a big fuzzball.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we had a good little small camera, but we were unobtrusive walking down the street, so that really helped. And then, yeah, we had a few people jump in front of the camera, and there was one that I just couldn't cut out. Sometimes I would zoom in, we had an image and I would zoom into a corner of it to avoid a problem, so the
Uh-huh.
camera, the final image does do a little bit of like reposition within the frame to,
Yeah.
when there was something that I just had to take out for some reason. And there was one guy at one point who's crosses, and I couldn't cut him out because he crosses in front of us, kind of leans in front of us. And so I just dubbed him, like he said something like, "Put me on camera" or something. And so I dubbed him saying, or dubbed myself or saying, "Go Niners" or something like that, like he was like a drunk, football fan. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but other than that, I worked with traffic actually, you know, dangerously, driving down the street. I was able to experience some luck. Like, we turn a corner for the scene pretty early on where Ethan and I go to rehearse on an alley in Chinatown. And when we had done the walkthrough, we turned the corner and there we are. And then when we actually were going with the camera, we turned the corner and there was a lady feeding pigeons, a bunch of bags of stuff around her and 50 pigeons. And so Ethan kind of walks through the pigeons and waves his guitar with a little flourish and all the pigeons fly in the air. And it was
Nice.
amazing, and there were
Yeah.
amazing moments like that had we tried to plan them,
Yeah.
it's like you hire a pigeon wrangler and then you're bringing in 50 pigeons and they're like, "Oh, the pigeons aren't behaving. Let's wait. Let's do it again." And, you could spend thousands of dollars and several hours just planning something like walking through a bunch of pigeons, but we
Yeah.
just got the pigeons for free. So that's the great thing about shooting in the real world. That,
Yeah.
but then also the bars, there's a history in each of these places going back, to the beatnik era or earlier. And you can feel that in the walls. And, there were some people who wandered in to get a drink and they're just locals getting a drink. We had signs up and, people whispering as they walk in, like, we're filming a movie, you got to sign this if you want to go in, but
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people were like, sure, whatever, and they go in and they order, like, so that, and that's San Francisco at its best. I mean, the real
Yeah.
San Francisco, the old literary, artistic, you know, free jazz, beatnik, hippie city that is still there underneath all of the tech boom garbage.
Yeah. How are you still, do you still have a place there? Are you still living out there
No,
too? Or
the apartment that's featured in the movie, my dad rented for 63 years,
wow.
and he was paying an obscenely low amount of money because it was rent controlled.
Yeah.
But we couldn't keep it after he died because it was in his name, and
Yeah.
the landlord definitely wanted to raise the rent. So,
Yeah.
although
Yeah.
amazingly, our sister went by there recently, and they have not rented it out yet. They haven't remodeled yet. It was, she went and looked in through the window of the
Yeah.
door. That I don't know what's going on, but they've just
It's
been
harder
sitting
than
there.
they think. It's, rents are crazy and it's, it's harder than landlords think. It's really easy to move apartments like that, but
Mhm.
it's not as easy as they think. I I wanted to because we met at the film festival and we were talking about the challenges of getting distribution and so forth. And I noticed that the film is on Prime now that you can get it. Can you get it on Prime or where can we get the film?
No, it's
I
not
was looking
available
it
yet.
up.
If it's on
It's
Prime,
not
then
available.
somebody, if it is, then somebody is illegally putting it on Prime.
All
Um,
right, I'll double check because I thought I saw a link. Maybe it's just the
It might
when I was
be,
doing my
it's
research.
listed on places like Mubi that list films, but it's not
Yeah.
available. Shouldn't be
So,
available. Um, yeah, so we're working on getting it out properly in February.
okay.
So that's not locked in yet, but after over a year of hustle and an insane amount of hustle that I won't even bore you
Congratulations.
with, we seem to be eking our way towards a plan to get it.
So how do you feel about the film festival process after this, putting your film through
Well,
it? Did it work for you or?
it's a wonderful way to meet people. I mean, that's how we met. We're flying to Sarajevo on Saturday to screen the film, and we'll be in Spain. We'll be in possibly Colombia. It gives me a free ride to go to different wonderful places in the world and show the film and meet audiences and see how it plays. And, I mean, like in Brazil, for example, we played it, and you never know with subtitles and an improvised movie with songs in it, like how are people going to respond? And it was just the response was incredible in Brazil. And so that's heartening, and so that's a nice thing just to kind of, you make something, you want to connect with human, or I want to connect with humans. That's sort of why I do it. So it's gratifying in that sense. It's not necessarily business happening at all these festivals, although we have sold some territories when we go to a place, and if we're lucky, that happens. But I think for the next film, my film that's more about my mother's death and processing that through a ritual with Alejandro Jodorowsky, that one is, I really want to premiere it at one of the biggest festivals like Cannes or Venice,
Yeah.
because not only does it shine a bigger light on it, but it makes distribution easier. It's not a guarantee at all, but
Yeah.
so playing some of the great, but not necessarily like biggest festivals in the world doesn't necessarily lead straight to distribution. So, but it's hard to get into Cannes.
Yeah, it
But
is.
it's
It's
possible. I
possible.
believe in it for this next
Yeah.
film. Um, so yeah, it's been an adventure, and I'm glad we're finally starting to see the light on a distribution.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
how,
do
is that the
encourage.
helicopter film?
Hmm?
Is that the helicopter film?
No, well, distribution for Brother versus Brother in
Yeah,
Feb.
but the next film is the
The next film
helicopter.
is Helicopter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But continue with
Um,
what you're saying. Advice for you're saying if anyone
so
is thinking
I will.
of,
Oh yeah, I mean, I try to share. I don't remember what I was going to say.
I'm
I've already
sorry, I cut
forgotten.
you
No, it's
off
okay. I've already forgotten my
there.
brain. Um, uh, I try in my Substack uh, Cinema Verses, which I guess we do this as a collab. I've never done a like collab on Substack, but anyway, I try to share advice about what I do to both creatively, how to keep myself going, and also some of the logistics of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, little stuff that's so important that some people don't know, like if you're doing a short film, it should be short. People like, I just did it, I just spent 2 years and all of my parents' money mortgaged their house to pay for my 37-minute short film. I'm like, you're
Yeah,
never
it's
going
not
to get
short.
programmed. So like things like
Yeah.
that, or never submit a film that's not fully completely done, locked, colored, mixed to a festival.
Yeah.
Never, just never, don't do it, period. So
Yeah. And
things
I
like
root
that
for more 90-minute feature films because I feel like that's it's your
well,
film.
all of my films have been in the like 90 to 93-minute range, and
It's the
I,
sweet
I think
spot.
it's yeah, I think it's a sweet spot. But I mean, there are some movies like Lawrence of Arabia where the 2 hour version feels endless, and then the original, which was like 3 or 3.5 hours, feels short because it's really meant to be long like that, and the story
Yeah, but
works better.
most people aren't making Lawrence of Arabia. Like when
That
your
is true.
slasher horror film about yoga is like 2 hours and 30 minutes, it's kind of
Yeah, no,
hard
no,
to
it's
like
nuts. It's nuts.
it's nuts but it's such a great film. It's both you and your brother are so talented, and
Well, thank you.
I'm just rooting for both of you and for the films that you're creating because not only are they fun and funny and innovative, they're just definitely um, raise the level of consciousness, and also it's something that like you can talk to people about after. It's
Yeah, but it's a
like,
nice thing with the festivals too, is that people really want to talk to us
yeah,
about our dad and about these questions about shooting live in the streets and how Francis Coppola ended up becoming involved as executive producer, which happened after the fact, but he saw the film and really responded to it. So, those things people like to talk about, and if it's
yeah.
helpful for them in their process. In fact, actually, there was a guy who came to a screening, of like photographer who does like photographs parties and things like that. And he had photographed one of our parties and watched the film that we played. And then I ran into him in New York like a month and a half ago, and he was like, "I made a movie, and it's because of you." And so that's really
Oh,
cool. That's really
that's
cool. That he was so
awesome.
inspired by what he saw that he was like, let me do this. Let me, find a way to make it happen, and just went and did it. So
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, you know, I, I deal with mood issues. A lot of people do. I deal with mood issues, and sometimes really have trouble getting myself to keep going when things are so hard. And so if
Yeah.
my movies and my Substack sort of are inspiring to people, and that's sort of the goal of them, it's not like I'm in a constant state of rah rah all the time. I need these tools for myself too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was feeling really, really down last week about the ecological state of the world, and I mean, I won't get into that right now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but
No.
my prayer is like, help me, whoever can help me in the spiritual realm, help me be of service. So if I can be of
Yeah.
service, and then maybe this comes back to the codependence thing, if I can be of service to the world in a way that's not codependent and is okay with however messed up the world is, but I still can be of service without having my
Yeah.
own sense of self wrapped up in, you know, things not being the way I would ideally want them to be,
Yeah.
then that's good, and that's doing my part for the
Yeah.
world.
Well, can I ask you two more questions?
Sure.
We're at 3:30, but we had a little gap
We
because
had
of
some
your
glitches,
little,
so yeah,
so if I can have a little more time.
yeah,
Um, how do you what I think I know the answer to this, but how do you take care of yourself? Like what are your processes for self-care other than helping other people
yeah. Well,
when you're dealing
certainly
with
the
so
work is part
much?
of it. Yeah, the work,
Yeah.
doing my work is part of my self-care, because if I am advancing stories that I think have positive impact, then makes me feel a little bit better sometimes. I also meditate. I do transcendental meditation, but I've also done other forms of meditation as well. But in the last couple of years, I've really found TM to be helpful. I actually got into it because of listening to the audiobook of David Lynch's autobiography.
Oh,
It's a like
cool. Yeah, yeah.
biography, autobiography book where the alternating chapters by him and by a biographer.
Yeah.
But I had done TM for a while and kind of dropped off, and reading this book and hearing him, like, and it's such a beautiful piece of pie, and his positive attitude, which was probably innate, but also I think he really credits the meditation twice a day for calibrating him and helping him process his anger issues and various other
Yeah.
things. And so she went to his grave a few days ago and
Mm.
poured some coffee on the grave.
Oh.
I don't know. It was like, is this disrespectful or respectful? I think it's respectful. I think
Yeah, you're pouring one out. I think that's
he's
respectful.
it was a good black coffee, like he liked
Yeah.
it. So, um, but yeah. So
Does
meditation,
yeah.
um, doing
Does
the work.
playing music
Yeah,
follow?
and so like piano over there. So like,
Yeah.
um, I'll often just sit down and play music. And I'm not an expert piano player by any stretch of the imagination, but for examples, like I have some classical music, sheet music on the piano, but I can't read. I can't read music,
Yeah.
so I just use the shapes, and I'm like get inspired by the shapes of some classical composer, and then I just start doing something that's sort of vaguely inspired by the shapes of sheet music that I can't understand. So, doing that is can be really great, and I encourage people always to do several forms of art. And the poetry book that I wrote with my dad and my brother, Father versus Sons, which I guess we can do a little show and tell, or is this just an audio
Yeah. Yeah, this
podcast?
is video. Go ahead and show it. So Ari's going he's going, he's giving us
You know,
props, y'all.
yeah. So the Father versus Sons was written by U.S. mail. We mailed poems back and forth before he died, and it was sort of a precursor to Brother versus Brother.
Mhm.
But the idea with the poetry was just to express quickly, and to not think about it, and it was intimately passed between us by mail. But likewise with the piano, like I have no goal to turn my piano noodlings into an album, although I could sometimes. I'm like, maybe I take some of these recordings and throw them on. But it's not a professional thing.
Yeah.
And I think doing, if you're a filmmaker, it's great to do gardening or piano or ukulele or something, because I do poetry to just express.
Yeah.
And if one way isn't working, or if one way starts to feel stressful because you're taking it too seriously, do another thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do need I have to confess, I need an arsenal of things
Yeah.
sometimes to keep my
Well,
mood.
you're always on, like, you're a city bike person in New York. So
Yes,
you're
I
always
bike.
out on the bikes,
I'm
and
always
so
out on
that's
the
good
bike.
too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, biking, connecting with people, volunteering, um, creating art badly. I would say like I really
Mm,
emphasize like do something you're bad at.
yeah.
Um, Surfing, drawing, painting, like as bad as possible because we live in a culture where it's like, oh, I should be good at this,
Yeah.
and then immediately you're going into the left side of the brain where you're like
Yeah.
analyzing what you're doing, and then you're no longer actually connecting to your
Yeah.
dream life. So this is what I try to do every day, with sometimes with success and sometimes without success.
Wow. And my last question, which is the question I ask for everyone on my podcast, is what about this whole process of creating Brother versus Brother brought you the most joy?
I think filming the scenes with my dad, um, it was both itself a beautiful experience and to be surprised by the way he delivered the scene.
Mm,
Knowing him my whole life and not knowing but suspecting that he didn't have long to live.
mm,
He really kind of mic dropped that scene in a way that was like he mic dropped it and then died.
mm.
And I mean, one of the last things he said to me, because he died a few weeks after we filmed, he never saw the footage, but he's he said, "Did you get the shot you needed?" And
Mm.
it was, that was a profound thing. And now when I watch the film with an audience in Brazil or whatever, or I'll be out in the lobby and waiting to do the Q&A, and I hear my dad's voice coming
Yeah.
through the walls, and I hear that the tone of his voice and the tone of his apartment, the way that his,
Ah, you're making
65
me cry.
years, whatever, apartment was echoing.
Yeah.
I can almost like smell the rotting bananas in his kitchen, and so that it's not exactly joy, but there's something quite powerful in that, in hearing his voice in these other countries, and having that, and knowing that I have that record now. So yeah.
I would say that's profound joy that transcends. You got me crying because, yeah, it makes me think of my dad and taking care of him. So that's
And
what's lovely about
where's
the
your
film.
dad?
He passed.
Oh, he died. Okay.
He passed in surgery
Uh-huh.
unexpectedly, like before.
Sorry.
So that's kind of in 2023. So I think I met you in 2024. I think that's when you went.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was still, he passed in November, and then I went to South by in, what was that, June or April or March, something like that.
Uh, oh no, it was
Was it 25? Maybe it
25.
was 25.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave it a year. But yeah, but it's still, the layers of grief,
Yeah.
particularly when you're caring for someone,
Yeah.
they keep. So the film was really I just loved the scenes with your dad and just of that generation, how they're
Yeah.
always like, yeah, I'm fine. Because my dad was 90. It's a little younger than yours. My uncle's still alive. He's 101. I'm gonna go
Oh
see
wow.
him next week.
Okay.
Yeah, my uncle Walter. But
Maybe
just
you should write a poem with him.
yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to be on camera because he's paranoid of the
Okay.
police.
Yeah, right. That's right. You could do like
So,
what's it called? The exquisite corpse, where the one person says a line, the next person doesn't know what the line is. I can't remember how it works. But you
that's a
put
good
together a
idea.
poem by guesswork, essentially, and then you
Yeah,
unfold it. And if he can't write, or it's hard for him to see at that stage, you write it for him. But I don't know.
yeah.
I really encourage people to sort of, and I talk to a lot of people who say like, oh, my dad wouldn't do that, or my mom wouldn't do that, or they're not like that. I'm like, don't say that. Like that,
Yeah.
like you don't know until you don't just ask for it. You kind of have to insist sometimes. And
Yeah.
then with an older person, often I've found that, I mean, even with, you know, parents of friends of mine or whatever, they're like, oh my, you know, I'll crack some jokes that they think I shouldn't crack, and the person starts laughing, and they're like, of course, this person was 17 at one point. Like, come on,
Yeah.
like, don't treat them like
Yeah.
they're this, you know, vase in a
Yeah.
museum. Like,
Yeah.
have fun with them, and give them the opportunity to paint, draw, write a poem, sing, that they may have forgotten that they had, but certainly when they were 5 years old, they were doing it. So bring it back.
You're good at that because you knock people off of their common sense in good ways.
Yeah, with
Because
a
you're
little bit of
funny and
destabilization. Yeah.
yeah.
You
So
just surprise and
sometimes,
destabilize and shock people, and then they'll
yeah.
do things. But you can do
Yeah.
that too. I believe in you.
Yeah, I mean, I try, and
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's good if you're like for caregivers, it's hard because you're with that person all the time. So you get desensitized and it's more of that other area that you were in, I got to take care of this part of I got to take care of this part. So it's good to remember that you could just sit down and write a poem with them. And if, you'll have that little piece of art of
Hmm.
of your loved one. So
Yeah.
Ari Gold, thank you.
Janine, thank you.
Everybody support the film, support Brother versus Brother. It'll be out soon. And
Yeah,
I'll
so
put
come
all
to
of
go to
the,
cinemaverses.com and
yeah,
follow my Substack if you feel so inclined. And
I will put all the links in the show notes below.
okay.
So,
And are you putting this on your Substack? Is that where you put it, or
yeah, this will be on Substack.
okay?
Give me a smile,
But
hold
it
your
also goes
smile.
out to I don't know the tech on this.
Hold your
Okay.
smile. Let's talk once I hit record.
Okay,
So
so I
hold
should
your
shut up.
smile. Let's get a nice smile.
Good.
Shut the fuck up for a second.
Okay, fine.
And smile.
Let's go.
And that's it for this week's episode of Viz Able Black Woman, the podcast. A huge thank you to Ari Gold for joining me today and sharing so openly about Brother versus Brother, caregiving, and the creative process. You can follow Ari on Substack at Cinemaverses. Viz Able Black Woman, the podcast is free, and I want to keep it that way. But the only way I can keep making it is with your support. So if this conversation moved you, head over to Patreon and subscribe to Viz Able Black Woman. Every patron makes a real difference in keeping this show independent. Please subscribe to Viz Able Black Woman on Medium for my certified Rotten Tomatoes linked TV and film reviews. For deeper dives on the entertainment industry, wellness industry, and theater reviews, I'm also writing on Viz Able Black Woman on Substack with exclusive content for my subscribers. So please join me there. You can also catch full episode of this right here podcast on YouTube. Just search Viz Able Black Woman, and please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed today's conversation. I'm on Instagram at Viz Able Black Woman with 2 N's because I was hacked. And of course, you can find Viz Able Black Woman on most podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts and more. I've provided clickable links to everything in the show notes, so don't worry if you didn't catch anything when I was saying it. But if you like listening to the way that I say Viz Able Black Woman, just rewind and listen again. Until next time, thanks again for listening to Viz Able Black Woman, the podcast. I'll see you soon. Viz Able Black Woman, the podcast was created, written, hosted, and produced by me, Janine T. Abraham, a real flesh and blood human being living in the heart of New York City.